Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today we're going to continue with the 10-week fat loss series. This week it is the halfway point, it is week 5. I'm going to show you what's happened this week and what we're then going to move on to going into the last half of the week and the changes we are going to make. If you haven't seen the previous videos, do go and watch them, because throughout the series I'm explaining what I'm looking for week to week and what I'm potentially changing week to week to get the results that I'm after within what is a short space of 10 weeks. If you do find this video helpful, please do drop a like. If you got any comments, throw them down as we go through. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Okay, so if you've seen last week's video, you'll know last week was a very, very hectic week. It was a week where we had very little control over our intake, and we almost had to use just general sort of guidelines, almost winging it to a degree. We couldn't really be accurate with intake. We couldn't be on the ball with half of then the equation of calories or energy in, right? So we couldn't really follow the targets that we had set. However, this week we had a lot more control, things were a lot different, and that allowed us to then fall back into those targets. So this week was all about simply doing that, okay? Falling back into the previous targets and adjustments we had made and trying to be consistent and adhere to that. So just to quickly recap, those targets currently are 2,600 calories a day, 12,000 steps a day, and then 5 weight training sessions across the week, okay? So we couldn't really do this too well. We could do the expenditure side of things. I made sure steps there 12,000. I made sure we trained 5 times a week last week, but we couldn't really stay true to the calorie intake, okay? So this week has just been all about falling back into consistency with these targets, right? And that's something that I would, or a point that I would get across, okay? Some weeks you're not going to be able to potentially stick to the plan to a T. When that does happen, the main thing is that when you then have the ability to do so, you just fall back into those previous targets that you had set, and then you assess where you go from there, okay? So this week, we stayed consistent with this, and we had a look at what that meant for our rate of loss and the progress that we made, okay? And this week, we lost just over a pound. So this week, we lost just over a pound, okay? Which is obviously not the rate of loss that we're after. If you've watched the previous videos, you'll know the rate we're after is about 2 pounds per week, right? So this would suggest that adjustments are then going to be needed to be made, right? Now, when I last made adjustments, I made this point and I'll make it again. If your goal, or you have the time you have for your goal, is much longer or longer than 10 weeks, which for most people it will be. 10 weeks is a short space of time. And if you're looking to get great results in 10 weeks, then you have to really be on the ball with things, okay? Obviously, I'm doing this within 10 weeks. A lot of you will have more time. If you do have more time, just because 1 week of the target you have set didn't give you the rate of loss you're after, or maybe even weight stalled, whatever it might be, I wouldn't be so quick to make adjustments or changes because of that, just because of 1 week. I would normally give it at least 2 weeks of being very consistent and adherent to the targets you've set before making changes. However, because for me time is much shorter, I have to act a little bit quicker. Plus, I've also got quite a lot of tools at my disposal that I can still use. So, going into next week, we're going to make some changes to this to only really try, and because it was actually just over a pound. I put a pound on the board, but it was just over a pound. So I think if we try and increase that calorie deficit by, let's say, half a pound, an extra 500 calories increase in deficit, then we should be looking at that back to that 2 pound a week loss. Okay, so going off that 500 calorie rule that we've spoken about, which if you're unaware of, it's in the previous video, so do go and check them out. If we increase the deficit by 500, that will equate to a pound a week loss. I think I just said half a pound, I made a mistake. But we want to increase the rate of loss by half a pound. So we're going to half that, and we need to increase the deficit by 250, right? So, how are we going to do this? We're going to drop food by 150. So it was 2,600 calories a day. We're going to drop that to 2,450, right? So we're going to drop food to 2,450 calories, which is going to be an extra 150 calories of a deficit a day, right? So we need an extra 100 calories. All we're going to then do is I'm going to add a cardio session in the week, okay? And I'm going to, there's different ways you can go about this. You know, it depends what sort of cardio you can do. You could do it on time and sort of guesstimate how many calories you can burn. I'm going to be doing it in the gym. I'm going to use something like a cross trainer, and I'm just going to gauge it off that cross trainer. It's not the most accurate way of doing it, but I'm going to gauge it off that cross trainer, and I'm going to go for a session that's going to allow me to burn about 150 calories, right? Obviously that's going to be slightly over the 250, it's going to be 300 in total, but it's just rough maths, it's never completely accurate anyway. So taking food down by 150, adding a cardio session with the expenditure of 150 calories is going to then help increase that deficit by that 250 amount, which is then going to hopefully lead us back to that £2 a week loss. Okay. The only reason I'm not taking steps up further to get this extra 150 and instead adding a cardio session is just simply because of time. At the minute, for me to hit 12,000 steps, it's almost pushing sort of limits a little bit in terms of time. If needs be, and I might need to in future, take steps up again. I do probably have the time to do it, but right now it's probably close to its sort of limits. So it's easier for me to add a cardio session for time than it is to add steps. And obviously going back through that checklist of feedback that we're looking for, right? So like again in previous videos, I've spoken about training performance, which is still great for me. Some bigger movements maybe starting to struggle a little bit in terms of holding. You know, some have maybe dropped by like 1 rep or something. It's not a lot, it's to be expected, nothing to worry about. The smaller movements, still fine, some of them still even progressing. So training as a whole, great. Sleep, great. Energy, great. Mood, great. Hunger, not bad. So everything in terms of what we're looking for feedback and how things are going is fantastic. So we're going to make these changes. We're going to see what happens next week. Okay, hopefully we're going to be back to that £2 a week loss. If so, we stay consistent, we adhere, and we crack on. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please do drop a like. Got any questions after it, throw them down below. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.